All right, so it is May 7, 2022. Tomorrow's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and of course, the people near and dear to me. I want to talk today about words like spiritual and material. Often people will say things like, material things don't matter, money doesn't matter, or your possessions don't matter. It's all about spiritual things or connection or people or things like that. So what I'm going to suggest to you is a false dichotomy, meaning things that appear to be opposite that really aren't. In other words, people think material or spiritual. What I'm going to try to explain is my view on things, that it's material and spiritual are one thing. So first of all, when I talk about spiritual, if you will, I'm going to say small s, spiritual. Everybody has, many people have various religious beliefs in certain higher powers, and they have different um, versions of what they feel is their higher power. But those large S spiritual, if you will, depend on faith, because they don't know for sure, but they have faith. They don't, I shouldn't say they would of course claim they do know for sure because they have a strong faith, but they don't know firsthand. They have to believe based on faith. What I'm referring to is spiritual principles that everybody can agree on, that everybody knows what I'm talking about, but they aren't material. You can't touch them, you can't feel them. So I'm talking about things like courage, rationality, honesty, ingenuity, imagination, reason, purpose, self-esteem. These are all just a handful of things that if I say to you, does that exist? Everybody else, of course it exists. You don't have to have faith in it. Everybody knows that there's such thing as courage, such thing as ingenuity, such thing as imagination, such thing as discipline. So they know it, but of course it's spiritual, because if I say, well, what color is courage, and how much does it weigh, and can you show me a picture of it? You can show me examples of people exemplifying spiritual principles, but you can't touch it yourself. So when people look at a possession, so I'm going to say, for example, an automobile, a beautiful automobile. Stephen Covey would say, when it comes to creative something, there are also always two creations. First, in your mind. First, you have to imagine the end product. And then from that imagination, from that blueprint in your mind, maybe it goes from in your mind to writing a plan, and eventually the finished product, be it an automobile, a building, a piece of technology, what have you. So when we witness things like, say, a car, what we are witnessing is the material manifestation of spiritual principles. Because before, it didn't just appear out of thin air. And of course, the example of a car, you're not only looking at one creation, you're looking at the sum of multiple creations. Somebody had to figure out power steering and ABS brakes and the stereo system inside and all the computers that are in there, the type of windshield that you can rely on to not break, vulcanized tires that you can drive 100 miles per hour out on and not worry about having a blowout, proper exhaust, all the various things. There are so many spiritual principles that go into the creation of a car, or for that matter, anything as banal as the plumbing in your house, the heating system, or of course, naturally, an actual work of art in terms of a painting or a sculpture or what have you. All these things that we're surrounded by, that I'm always continually amazed by, because all around me, I always think engineers, I used to be in sales for a long time, and often we would say that engineers were really difficult clients to deal with, because they always wanted to have a million questions and want to know how everything worked. And I think in general, this is a generalization, that engineers often had a distrust of salespeople. But I always think, whether, I'm eating a meal with a spoon, and I think some engineer had to figure out how to make this spoon ergonomic so that it's easy to hold in my hand, easy to put in my mouth. Somebody's designing plastic cutlery and everything that we work with on a given day. And they are really works of art, and they are really material manifestations of spiritual principles. So again, just to say this whole idea of, material doesn't matter, material does matter. 100 years ago, people's lives were basically working long hours to just eke out their survival, working themselves to an early death, except for the very rich who often, before we had individual rights and things like that, became rich through plunder or through passing it on through royalty and feudal systems and things like that. Today, because of so many people who have had so many great ideas, we can think of leisure time on an ongoing basis that we can do and live to a ripe old age and not have to worry. Things like sanitation, which has increased people's lifespan immeasurably. And as a result of that, again, it all started with somebody in somebody's mind, spiritual principle, imagination, ingenuity, somebody looking at a problem and saying, how can I solve this? How can I make things better? So that's spiritual versus material? No, it's spiritual and material. Once again, happy Mother's Day to everyone out there, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. If you listen to the end, and of course, subscribing is always greatly appreciated. Bye for now.